A Hong Kong trust can be simple or it can become a serious family office structure. In most cases, the setup cost starts in the low five figures in US dollars, but the total budget depends on the trustee, assets, drafting, tax review, and ongoing administration. For families with shares and investment portfolios and property interest, as well as cross-border succession needs, the important point is not just the first invoice, but the real cost of full structure that includes as well the annual administration, banking, and the asset transfers, as well as the future governance requirement. My name is Shiraz Waheed and I'm the co-founder at Lepidus Wealth. And in this video, I'm going to explain how much it costs to set up a Hong Kong trust, what the main fee components are, what increases the price, and how to think about the total budget before you proceed. But before going into each cost item, it helps to separate the setup fee from the lifetime cost of maintaining the structure. For a simple Hong Kong trust, it is expected in the range of between 25 to 30,000 US dollars. This may work where the trust has clear family purpose, one main asset class, limited beneficiaries, and no heavy cross-border tax or governance issues. For more developed family trusts, the expected range can be closer to $50,000. This usually applies where the trust deed needs more customized drafting, the trustee has to review family company shares, or there are beneficiaries in more than one country. For a more complex structure, the setup budget can go up to $80,000 to $120,000. This may apply where the trust holds operating businesses, family office assets, multiple holding companies, real estate interest, or private trust company. These are the planning ranges and not fixed prices. The final cost depends on the trustee, the lawyer, the assets, the family profile, and the number of jurisdictions and entities involved. Now, when it comes to itemized costing, the trust deed is one of the main setup costs. For a basic trust, legal drafting may be within the range of $10,000 to $15,000. For a more tailored solution, especially where there are reserved powers, protected roles, business assets, or multiple country involved, the drafting budget may move closer to $25,000 or $30,000. The deed sets out who the settler is, who the trustee is, who the beneficiaries are, and what powers the trustee has. It also shows how distributions may be made and how control is handled after the death or incapacity of the founder. Costs should not be viewed as a document preparation only. The deed affects the control, succession, the trustee discretion, and investment powers and how the trust will operate in practice. A cheaper document may look acceptable at the beginning, but it can become expensive later if the trustee cannot act clearly, if the beneficiaries challenge decisions, or if asset transfers were not properly addressed. Now, when it comes to trustee fee, professional trustee normally charge a setup or onboarding fee. For a simple family trust, this may fall between $8,000 to $10,000. For a more involved structure, it may be between $15,000 to $20,000. This fee also covers the trustee's review before accepting the appointment. The trustee will usually assess the settler, beneficiaries, source of wealth, asset, family background, as well as tax profile and intended purpose of the trust. For international families, onboarding may involve passports, proof of address, corporate documents, and bank statements, as well as business ownership records, source of fund evidence, and tax residency information. This is one area where families often underestimate the budget. The trustee is not only signing the trust deed, the trustee is taking fiduciary responsibilities for administering the assets in line with the trust terms. Now, after the setup, the annual cost becomes important. A basic Hong Kong trust may have annual administration fee that is between $10,000 to $15,000, or for a more active trust, it may be above $20,000 per year. A complex family trust or a family office trust may cost between $40,000 to $50,000 per year. Some trustee charges fixed annual fee. Other charges based on the asset value, transaction volume, or the amount of work involved. Some may also charge separately for distribution, trustee resolutions, compliance reviews, banking support, or asset transfers. A passive trust holding a long-term investment portfolio will usually cost less than a trust holding operating company shares. Business assets require more decisions, more records, and more coordination. Families should ask for a full fee schedule before proceeding. A low headline annual fee may not include transaction fee, extraordinary work, or additional compliance work. If the trust needs a bank account or investment account, there may be additional onboarding and advisory costs. A simple account opening may be included in the trustee's annual work, but more involved banking support may cost between $3,000 to $7,000 US dollars. The bank may request the trust deed, the trustee documents, beneficiary information, source of wealth evidence, as well as tax forms and explanation of the investment purpose. If the trust hold an investment portfolio, the investment platform, private bank, or asset manager may also have minimum balance requirements. These are not the trust setup fee, but they affect whether the structure is practical. The key point is that that the trust may be legally established before the banking relationship is fully operational. So the budget should include both the legal setup and the practical implementation requirements. Now, another major cost when setting up a trust in Hong Kong is the asset transfer fee. Transferring assets into the trust can create extra cost. If trust receives cash or listed investments, the process may be relatively simple. If it receives private company shares or real estate assets, the cost can increase. For private company shares, you may need share transfer form, board approvals, update registers, valuation advice, and legal review. And if real estate is involved, the cost can be much higher because the transfer may trigger stamp duty and land registry fee, as well as tax reporting or local legal advice in the country where the property is located. For cross-border families, this part is critical. A Hong Kong trust deed may be signed in Hong Kong, but the assets may sit in Dubai, London, Singapore, or another jurisdiction. Each country and jurisdiction has its own rules on ownership transfer. Now, when it comes to tax advice, it is usually separate from the trustee and drafting fee. For a basic review, families may budget between $5,000 to $10,000. For a multi-jurisdictional tax advice, the cost may go up. If the family has UK, US, Indian, European, or Singapore connections, the review may need more than one advisor. And when it comes to the tax review, domicile, residency and citizenships, asset location, and source of income all matters. For example, a UK connected family may need inheritance tax advice before transferring assets. A US connected person may need US tax and reporting advice. Beneficiaries in different countries may also face tax consequences when distributions are made. A Hong Kong trust may be efficient from a legal and governance perspective, but the tax result depends on personal facts. The trust should be coordinated with your residency, domicile, asset base, and succession objectives before assets are transferred. Now, some families also use a private trust company, often called a PTC. A private trust company is a company created to act as a trustee for one family or connected group of family trusts. A simple PTC company may cost between $2,000 to $3,000, but that is only the company formation cost. Once legal advice, governance design, directors, company secretary, registered office address, as well as accounting and audit and trust structuring are included, the total setup cost may increase dramatically. The annual maintenance for the PTC itself may be between $5,000 to $10,000 for a basic company administration. If the PTC has professional directors, more governance work, board meetings, or audit requirement, the annual cost can be higher. A PTC can give families more influence over the trustee level decisions, especially where the trust holds operating businesses or assets requiring family knowledge. However, it is usually not the lowest cost option. Now, there can also be instances of cost getting increased. Well, cost usually increases when there are more assets, more countries, more beneficiaries, and more decision-making layers. A trust holding an investment account may stay near the lower end of the range. A trust holding company shares, property interests, multiple bank accounts, and family office assets will usually move into the higher range. The structure also becomes more expensive when it connects with other entities. For example, the Hong Kong Trust may hold shares in an offshore company, and that company may hold a UAE SPV. The SPV may hold an operating asset, regional investments, or private company shares. For families connected to Dubai, a Hong Kong Trust may sit alongside a DIFC or ADGM foundation, an SPV, a family office structure, or a regional holding company. Dubai can provide a structure and regulated base for governance, asset holding, and family office coordination. As a practical guide, a simple Hong Kong Trust may require an initial budget between $25,000 to $30,000 and an annual cost of between $10,000 to $15,000. A mid-level family trust may require initial budget of $30,000 to $60,000 with annual budget between $20,000 to $30,000. And a complex family office trust, especially with company shares, international tax advice, banking coordination, and private trust company may require budget that is even higher. Now, these are expected working ranges, not fixed prices. The final cost depends on the trustee, lawyer, assets, number of jurisdictions, the tax profile, and how active the trust will be. A trust should also be established before there is a dispute, creditor issue, incapacity event, or succession trigger. For asset protection, timing and intent matters. And for inheritance planning, the structure needs to be in place early enough to support probate planning, control, and continuity. A Hong Kong trust can be a useful structure for international families, but it should be budgeted as a long-term governance arrangement, not as a one-time document. So if you want our help and would like to explore whether a trust, a foundation, or holding company fits your situation in any of the jurisdictions internationally or in Hong Kong itself, you can request a personalized asset protection plan by clicking the link in the description below. That's it for today, and I will see you in the next video.